Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining me. Today is Be a Millionaire Day, and we're here for the workshop about your wealth building journey starts now. So let's get going. As I mentioned, I am recording this session. This is just for marketing purposes and replay that I do put out on my YouTube channel. For those that are unable to join today's workshop, I post it out there so that if you choose to go back and take a look at it, or you want to understand the slides a little bit more, or someone wants to watch the replay, it is available. I also grab snippets for my social media for marketing purposes. But please know that I am not a financial advisor. I am a financial coach, and I use these sessions more to promote financial literacy, as well as just kind of giving an opportunity for ladies to come together and have dialogue around their finances. A couple housekeeping details, as I mentioned, if you feel you're going to have any background noise, feel free to mute yourself. But if not, if you want to ask a question, feel free to come off mute, share your camera. You're not required to share your camera, or you can raise your hand virtually. Just let me know. I'm also going to be using the chat, so feel free to put anything in the chat. I will be monitoring it throughout the workshop, and so if you have any questions, you can either say it physically or virtually. With that, hello everyone. My name is Kathy Lord. As I mentioned, I am a financial coach. Last year, I had an opportunity to retire early, and I decided to pursue one of my passions, which is financial coaching. I went through Dave Ramsey's program for financial coach master training and was able to complete that certification last year. And then I launched my business. Oftentimes I would have conversations with my coworkers and my team while I was at my previous job. And so many individuals would say, "Oh, Kathy, you've got so much knowledge. You should really become a life coach or financial coach." And so I just decided, I felt very strong in my financial foundation. And so I decided to take that leap into this space and just really help other women and other individuals to really understand and get more comfortable with their finances. So today's goal for the workshop is I really want to think about wealth building opportunities. And so a lot of women feel they might be behind in their finances, or they're not sure of their finances, or perhaps they're part of a couple and they've let their husband or their spouse handle the finances. And today we're really talking about how do we come together to not be judged or let our money judge us, but instead just come together with no shame, no regrets on what was happened in the past, and then move forward with stronger millionaire mindsets. And so the other thing I want to talk about is many individuals, when I have conversations during our client sessions, they feel very alone. They feel like no one else is going through the struggles that they're going through. And I would just encourage you, social media is not always truthful. And so just remember, there's many resources out there, whether it's on the state level, local level, resources like myself, social media. Feel free to reach out for help, because there is a lot of opportunity where you could improve your financial understanding through literacy and just asking for help, or even asking for guidance from other individuals. So just want to remind you, you're not alone. There's others out there willing to help you. Today, we're going to focus on empowerment, building wealthy habits, and talking about achieving your long-term financial goals. And we're going to do that. We've got 5 agenda topics. And with that, we're going to reframe wealth, building financial freedoms, and your legacy. Any questions before we get started? Oops, I'm going too fast. Okay. So with that, either go off mute or put in the chat, what comes to mind when you hear the word millionaire? Oftentimes when I talk with people, they'll say, "Well, Kathy, I'm not famous, so of course I'm never going to be a millionaire." Freedom is a word that comes to mind. Thank you for the word millionaire. A lot of people feel, especially as there's been, this awareness that we now have billionaires, out there, there's a lot of conversation that I've seen in the media that millionaire status is just not possible. And, a lot of people say, well, I don't have $1 million in income, so of course I'll never be a millionaire. And so part of today's conversation is kind of reframing that perspective. And with that, I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. I listen to his podcast. And if you're not familiar, Dave Ramsey is a financial coach out there. He has a podcast, he has a radio show, he's out on all the social media. But one of the things that he hosts is he has a millionaire hour where he actually has net worth millionaires come on his show and talk about how they achieved it. He completed a study of 10,000 millionaires, and one of the things that he discovered was teachers are one of the top 5 careers of millionaires out there. And we all know teachers, unfortunately, they don't make a lot of money. And so I want to talk a little bit about, millionaire status is not something that it's a one and done and you achieve it. Instead, it's something it slowly grows over time and through consistency and continued monitoring of your net worth, minimizing your debt, growing your assets. Ordinary people with intentional habits can become millionaires. There's also a book out there. If you're a reader, The Millionaire Next Door is pretty one of the top 5 books out there to really talk about millionaire strategies and mindsets about how you can, envision growing into be a millionaire. So I just want to reframe a little bit our conversation about all of us can be millionaires. What you have to do is you have to get intentional to achieve that status. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So I mentioned Dave Ramsey talks about a net worth millionaire. And so if you're not familiar with net worth, it's not about I brought in $1 million in income. Instead, it's a number that says, look at your total assets, and your assets would be your house, your accounts, like your savings account, your investments account, your 401k account. It could be if your car, if you've got property. Those are all of your assets. And then you subtract your liabilities, and that becomes your net worth. And so your liabilities are going to be, okay, I have a house, but I might still have a mortgage. I have a car as an asset, but I also have a loan against it. You might also have credit card debt. You might have student loans. All of these liabilities, these debts, subtract from your assets. So if, for example, if an asset, you had a $500,000 house and a $100,000 401k, but you had a mortgage and debt that also equals 500,000, then you only have a net worth of $100,000 because it's the combination of the two, and how does the debt negate your assets? And so with that, your goal to improve your net worth over time to become a millionaire is growing your assets and reducing your liabilities. And with that, a lot of it, again, it's not about your spending habits. It's about your growing of your assets. And so with that, I wanted to take a little bit of time. I recently read The Psychology of Money. And one of the things he talks about is defining rich compared to wealthy. And so again, as I talked about on the previous screen, when you think about your liabilities, you can go out and finance a $100,000 car. That might feel like you're rich, but it doesn't mean that you have a lot of wealth, even though you're driving around a splashy, fancy car. And so I think it's important to kind of distinguish your mindset, in my eyes, that says, I want to be wealthy because I have assets in accounts that can support me, compared to my goal is to be rich. And so one of the things I really want to encourage you is to reflect on, do you also want to be wealthy? Because millionaire status, you can all achieve it if you have a wealthy mindset, but it doesn't necessarily mean you may not be a millionaire if you spend and buy things to appear to be rich. So it's an interesting perspective to kind of think about. Just really want to encourage you. A lot of wealthy individuals that's mentioned in the psychology book by Morgan Housel is he talks a lot about, and in the Millionaire Next Door, he talks a lot about wealthy individuals are not spending for today. They are saving for tomorrow. Their spending and their buying habits are for something that they want later on, not today. And so just want to give you that as a reflection and an opportunity to kind of consider, do you want to be rich or do you want to be wealthy? And so with that, we're going to talk a little bit about, well, how do you build, that millionaire mindset? And if any of you have any thoughts or suggestions on building a millionaire mindset, again, feel free to put it in the chat. But I think for me, you really long time ago, my dad talked to me about, what does it mean to be financially responsible? And we would start having some dialogues within our family about how do you have a strong financial mindset. And I truly believe all of us, if you really want to achieve a millionaire status, then you have to embody millionaire mindsets. And with that, it is about a thinking process. It's also about visualizing what it is to be wealthy and how do you want your financial goals and your spending habits to promote that millionaire mindset. You really have to change your actions and your deeds to embody that future potential that you want to achieve. There's some on the screen that I mentioned. A lot of the wealthier individuals have a long-term focus compared to, as I mentioned, oftentimes rich individuals, it's all about, I got to have it now. My short-term opportunity, spend, spend, spend. I want to zero out everything in my account. And so I think for you, a good question in the chat, I think a long-term focus, it's in theory what you want it to be. For me, long-term focus, depending on what I'm looking at, because I'm retired, my long-term focus now is that longevity. But for me, typically a long-term focus could be 5 years, which was mentioned in the chat, but it could be 10 years, 20, 30, 40. You have to define, typically, I believe a long-term focus is going to be more than 25 years. But again, depending on where you are and what your financial goals are, they could be different depending on what the goal is. So very good question. Thanks for asking that. And then with that, again, millionaires should not, if you want to build a millionaire mindset, you don't hide from your numbers. You own the data. Don't let it judge you. Don't let it, bring shame and fear. You actually own it, and then you move forward with a plan. And so I think that too is an opportunity for you to consider is building wealthier habits is owning and looking at your data on a consistent basis and monitoring it. Is it growing the way I want it to be? And that's why I think understanding your net worth is so important. Looking at your net worth a couple times a year really helps remind you, are you on the path of growth that you are looking for? And again, embodying and thinking about these different mindsets, it's all about building confidence in your plans, in your actions, and in your goals. And with that confidence, it will continue to grow and build your opportunity to feel like I can achieve this. This is all possible. And so with that, there are 5 wealth building pillars, I believe: earning intentionally, spending with purpose, saving strategically, not just saving, but strategically, investing consistently, such a big one for long-term opportunities, and then protecting what you've built. And so let's dig into that. And again, if you have any questions as I'm going about, please, take yourself off mute or put it in the chat. The first wealth building pillar that I believe we need to consider is you've got to earn intentionally. You need to be aware of your income. You can't just say, hey, I got this new job. I'm going to make $70,000 and just never look at your checks and never look at, your pay stubs. You really need to be understanding what's the income coming in, tracking your cash flow, and understanding your spending habits. You should be looking at your spending plan, i.e., the budget, once a month, and really be proactive on how are you generating income, and does that income amount really help support your financial goals? I talk with some individuals and they're like, well, Kathy, I really want to retire early, but I'm not in the right place for my retirement plan. Well, you're either going to have to reduce your expenses or you're going to have to grow your income, or get a promotion or get a second job. And so a lot of this is really thinking about, your plans and how that income will support you going forward. And I also think it's important, like I mentioned, to talk about growth opportunities, whether it might be a promotion that, where are you, what's your opportunity to get promoted in a couple of years, what you can do to grow your skill sets with transferable skill sets, whether that's to move within your existing organization or maybe somewhere else, which is always okay. Again, what's your career advancement, whether it's in a leadership role or perhaps an expanded analytical role, really getting intentional around how that income is going to help you to grow your assets and be monitoring and not be wasteful about your spending and really increase your savings. And by wasteful, I mean splurging too much first compared to saving first. I think that's really important. One of the things that I believe it was Warren Buffett talked about, he said you should always save first and spend second. That's really important that you set aside your savings first and then you spending second. And so with that, our next wealth building pillar to consider is, again, spending with purpose. I talked a little bit about really making sure that your expenses that you have on a daily basis, do they support your financial values? And so for me, some of my financial values is I want to live financially independent. I got to make sure that I can support myself as a divorcee woman as well. I want to make sure that, retiring, can my investments and my assets support me? And so really think about, those are a couple of my financial values, but think about what are some of your financial values, and is your spending supporting those values and your dreams? Because often I find in my conversations with my clients, we get in the whirlwind of the day and our money goes away. We have no idea where it went to. And so this is your opportunity to think and pause that says, is my spending supporting where I want to really be in the long-term future? I think the other thing is to think about, people consider budgeting to be restrictive. And so I really would encourage you instead to foster an opportunity that says, my spending should support my lifestyle, but also my long-term goals or my short-term goals. And so really making sure that you monitor that balance is so important. And again, prioritizing meaningful purchases. Oftentimes people have conversations with me. I'm a big traveler. My sister and I and my children travel quite a lot. And people are like, how can you afford that? And I'm like, well, one of the things is, I actually, when I think about the house that I chose, what was it, when I moved out, when I got divorced 11 years ago, I had a house built on my savings plan of travel, because I knew I wanted to travel, and then I found a house that fit within that budget. And people would say, well, that's a little crazy. I'm like, but travel was one of my, my meaningful joys of adventures that I wanted to have with my family. And so I had to make sure that my spending plan allotted me that opportunity. So I found a smaller house that would accommodate my my budget so that I could travel to the opportunities that I wanted. And so that's where, again, I prioritized my world and my spending to what I wanted to create meaning that brought joy to me. And oftentimes we just think about the house of the bedrooms and the size without thinking of some of the other expenses that go into your spending. And so again, spending with purpose, I think, is so informative or impactful, because oftentimes that is what you're spending the majority of your money on. And so how do you make sure that all that money that's going out, it's not just on things that you don't like utility bills or insurance. And so how do you bring those other the awareness to your spending plans? And again, if you are thinking, again, budgeting is too restrictive, really want to encourage you to think about other opportunities, because if you're not tracking your spending, and even if it's at a high level categories, you're really going to struggle to move forward with strong investments and your spending and saving equally to your financial goals. So really, again, encourage you to spend with purpose. If you have any questions on what I brought up so far, feel free to put it in the chat. The third wealth building pillar that I want you to consider is, again, saving strategically. Often when we are overwhelmed with debt or struggling, maybe you've only got one income in your household and you're really struggling to figure things out, you don't get an opportunity to save very much. Dave Ramsey talks a lot about having a starter emergency fund. It's not a full emergency fund of 3 to 6 months, but it's a starting point. And so one of the things you really have to think about is, how can you save strategically? And so if you have found a savings account to be very beneficial to you, that really helped when you were in a pivotal point of either going into credit card debt or maybe taking a 401k loan, feel free to put in the chat, how a savings account has been beneficial to you, because, savings accounts or sinking funds, and if you're not familiar with a sinking fund is a way where you categorize part of your savings in a variety of buckets. And so, for example, you could have an emergency fund, you could have a medical sinking fund, i.e. for out-of-pocket expenses. You can have a vacation sinking fund. You can have a new car sinking fund. I've heard some people say, I have a parachute fund. So it could be for travel. It could be for emergencies. I see in the chat that you love having savings to put money away for trips and spa treatments. Yes, that's wonderful. Saving strategically helps you so that you don't draw on the liabilities like credit cards, loans, when something unexpected happens. Because often, she put in the chat, usually travel is a known expense. And so you shouldn't, oh, surprise, I need to travel. Doesn't need to go on credit cards. You should be saving. And so I typically will have, like I mentioned, I'm a big vacationer. And so I have a sinking fund of a set amount every month to go towards my vacations. And I actually lay out a year in advance what I'm going to be spending on my vacations. Those are strategic savings accounts, excuse me. And so with that, hopefully these savings accounts will minimize you having to rely on loans and credit cards. And again, start with something small. $1,000, $2,000 in savings will really help bring you higher confidence in your financial well-being and hopefully less stress and anxiety when surprises happen. I see in the chat you have a side gig and only use that money for dining out or nail salon. Love your lifestyle, Kitty. That's wonderful, Teresa. Yeah, that's a great idea. Our fourth wealth building pillar, excuse me, I came back from vacation with a respiratory infection, so my apologies if I'm coughing, is investing consistently. To me, everyone, this is how I've been able to retire early. I started investing at age 21. My dad reminded me when I first got my big job at a high school was, if they have a 401k, Kathy, you've got to invest. And so he set me up with a financial planner, and the consistency of setting aside money every month, as much as you can or as little as you can, every month, every year, every decade, that consistency gives you such long-term growth opportunities with compound interest. It is just amazing. And so whether it is setting aside $50, $500, $5,000, consistently first. Oftentimes I talked with my team when I was in my corporate job. I talked with my team and my peers. Hey, merits is coming around. Don't forget, instead of giving yourself a 3% raise, give yourself a 1% raise, and instead put the other 2% towards your savings, towards your retirement contributions. So important that you invest and actually look at your investments, understand how you're investing your money, whether it's giving you a better rate of return, a low rate of return, understanding your risk tolerance. Do you want to invest in bonds? Do you want to invest in international stock? Do a little bit of homework and research online. There are so many tutorials and videos out there to really help educate you. But the number one thing you have to do is you have to start. You really, if you want to build wealth and a millionaire mindset towards your future, you have to be investing consistently and continue to grow those investments. And with that, one of the things that I talk a lot about with my clients and individuals is the more you can set aside your income. I would talk with some of my clients and talk about, they would say, well, Kathy, how much do you set aside and save and invest? And I said 30%. They're like, what? How in the world did you get to 30%? And I would say, well, slowly building, over time I would get merits and I would get 1% every year. And I did that intentionally because I knew when I retired, so many people, they're not used to in savings. And so when they retire, they don't know how to live on less than they made. Like if you are spending 90% of your income, when you retire and you need to live on Social Security, which unfortunately is really only supposed to supplement 40% of your income, where's the other 50% to come from? But if you're saving 30% and for you to cut down to 60% of your income, it's not as hard. And so really, I want to encourage you that investment consistently can really help grow and support you in retirement because you're not used to living on 100%, 90% of your income. But investing consistently, as much as you can set aside, savings, retirement, brokerage account, whatever you can do, and then educate yourself to make sure that you're getting those better rates of return. And you can understand when there are market peaks and valleys, how you can navigate those changes in the market. But keep your money in there for sure. The last wealth building pillar is protecting now what you've built. Insurance. Insurance is so important because insurance transfers the risk to someone else. That's going to be home insurance, car insurance, umbrella insurance. It's going to be identity theft insurance. All of these are so important to ensure strong financial stability when accidents or unexpected events happen. And so really want to encourage you, especially lately with identity theft. There's a lot of conversations about so much of our information, unfortunately, is getting put out on the web. You want to protect yourself. All of these insurances are opportunities to ensure you can achieve your long-term goals because you're not getting derailed by emergencies. So just, again, really recommend, there's a lot of research out there that you can investigate to understand what's best. But I definitely would recommend, all the typical ones, like I mentioned, auto, home, or renters. You want to have umbrella insurance if your net worth is greater than $500,000. You might want to consider an umbrella insurance. There's the identity theft with restoration services, disability insurance, and if you have reached the age 65 and up, they also talk about long-term care insurance. That can be very expensive, but it is something that you should look at if you have the funds to do so. It is something to consider. And so with that, the next topic to talk about is millionaire habits. What are they? And so I really liked this little snippet that came from The Little Shine, where he talked about 9 habits to make you rich. If you want to build into a millionaire mindset, you need to have some millionaire habits. Some of them are pretty, common. Some of them might be um, something you haven't heard about. One of the ones that I really like is a 24-hour rule for impulse buys. Amazon is my weakness. I could spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on Amazon, and I usually regret half of them because I throw it away, or I don't need it, or I don't return something when I really should be returning something. And so really want to consider a 24-hour rule. It could be big purchases. You give yourself 48 hours to sleep on it. Hillary, did you have a question?
I didn't. That was an accidental.
But I love this habit, which is sleeping on something for 48 hours. I can't tell you how much I remove from my Amazon cart when I don't, impulse buy. So for me, I have a 48-hour rule on Amazon that if I still need it after 2 days, then I will consider purchasing. But again, some other millionaire habits, again, pushing yourself to save 10, 20, 30%. Whatever you can push yourself over time to save and set aside, so important. Investing early if you have that opportunity. If you have children, tell them, show them an investment calculator. If they would start setting aside, $500, $50 at 21, where they could be. The other thing to think about is don't try to spend less than you earn. And again, that really is part of number 2, but it's so important. Don't get into credit card debt. The interest could kill you. Track your net worth. These are all opportunities for you to consider as embracing these millionaire habits. And with that, like anything, it's all about consistency. If you can be consistent and disciplined around these habits, it really helps you pull away from emotional spending, instead financial spending that supports your long-term goals. Oftentimes we make big purchases on impulse or that emotional decision, and it's really important to pull away. Oh, that's a great idea, Hillary. She put in the chat, estate sales have become your best friend. It's a great way for spending less. Assuming you have a budget, it is a great way to get great products at a reduced rate. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Feel free to put any other ideas you might have in the chat. When I was growing up, it was all about, keeping up with the Joneses, and now I think it's become keeping up with the Kardashians. Again, the other thing I would consider that's not mentioned on the screen, a lot of millionaires talk about contentment, getting content with a smaller house, not the coolest clothes or the coolest gadgets or the neatest cars. Contentment is a huge, I think, opportunity to build on your long-term investment and really embrace millionaire opportunities. Because if you're trying to keep up with the Kardashians, I think you're really going to struggle to grow your assets towards your financial prosperity, because they just spend, and a lot of that stuff is just so expensive. And so the next thing I want you to think about is, what's your next move? How do you build on these millionaire habits? The main thing I really want to encourage you is, don't try to fix everything at once. It's so important that you recognize baby steps. And by baby steps, I don't mean Dave Ramsey's baby steps. I mean taking small actions towards your future. Teresa, I see you put in the chat, a larger purchase of a golf cart you only buy if it's the same as cash. I agree. That's a great option. Making sure you're not buying on credit, because if you're buying on credit, that means you may not be able to afford it if you don't have the money for it. So really good awareness. Thank you for sharing that. The other thing I would encourage you is, I'm a big journal and reflection person. So really want to encourage you, as you think about building a millionaire mindset, is, how do I want to get there? taking time, maybe taking 30 minutes, an hour this weekend during the holiday, grab a cup of coffee or some tea and really reflect what's one pillar you might want to focus on. What's one thing that you want to define some action items to work on for the next 30 days so that you can achieve your millionaire mindset. Consider developing a 90-day vision board. I'm a big visual person, and so I really appreciate having a vision board to help remind me what is it that I'm working for. And if I can see that, I usually print it, I put it on my wall here in my bedroom where my office is, and it reminds me if I'm going to make a purchase online, oh, is it going to support my goals? So think about whether it's physical or maybe it's an electronic reminder, or even just my sister likes to put on her cell phone a reminder on her lock screen of something that she's trying to achieve. Anything you can do physically, electronically to remind you that you want to build a new mindset going forward. Really encourage you to jot down those ideas and put them together in your plan. And with that, I talked a little bit earlier about values. David Bach wrote a book, Smart Women Finish Rich, and he talked about these financial values. Some of the examples he talked about was, one of your values is supporting your family or financial freedom, or it could be security, security to know that I'm taken care of. These are some examples that he used in his book. And I would really encourage you to think about what are some of your financial values. He recommends no more than 5, but think about what are some financial values of when I'm spending, is my spending supporting these 5 values? And if they're not, then why am I bothering? If I'm going to go out impulse buy on, one of the new things I'm doing is a new planner. I wanted to get some more markers. Does that support my financial values? Well, if it's outside of my budget, then why am I going to spend on it? I really shouldn't be. And so those financial values really gives you an opportunity to bump up against your goals, your values, and really help you to pause and think, is that spending what I want it to be on, and to help me achieve my long-term opportunities. And so with that, he talked a little bit about, wealth is really, it's beyond the money, it's habits, it's your mindset, it's your reflections, it's your intentions, and really think about those purpose-driven living and lasting impacts that you want, not just about the expenses going out of your checking account. And then another thing to think about is as you think about some of the goals that you've worked on in the past, have you run into roadblocks? Maybe you could talk about one of the roadblocks in the chat that you have run against in the past. Because I think for me, anytime I really encourage my clients as we think about setting goals is acknowledging you're going to hit roadblocks. We all do. Life happens. And so maybe before you get started on your goals that you're going to be working on, think about what are some of the roadblocks that I might run against. One of the examples, I was talking with one of my clients is who said, I'll never be a millionaire. There's not enough time. And I really challenged him that said, well, why couldn't you be a millionaire? And he's like, oh, this, no, that. I said, okay, well, let's talk about those. Let's think about an opportunity of overcoming that one roadblock. And we talked it through. And then we talked about the second one and we talked it through. And I was like, do you realize you have that potential to do it if you would just do it? But you've got to understand what those roadblocks are, because if you don't document some action items and opportunities to overcome those roadblocks, it's going to stop you. So really want to encourage you to think about what are some of the roadblocks that could stop you from achieving your financial goals, and think of some action items that you could do, work through to overcome them, so that when it happens a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, you hit that roadblock, you've already got some opportunities to overcome them. It looks like Cindy put in the chat that when you started, you didn't have a good list of where your spending went and you'd have surprises. Now everything is on repeat, and so there's no surprises. That's wonderful. And I think for you to work through that budgeting is hard, everyone. And really, you have to be intentional to set aside time to look at your numbers. And it's really important you budget ahead of the month, not at the end of the month. And so you really have to define that time and embrace this planning opportunity. Because otherwise, if you don't, like I said, don't be shocked then. A year goes by and you have no idea where your money went. And that's the unfortunate side is life will happen and take over our money if we don't monitor it and give it a job. And she was complimenting Michael Hyatt is a podcaster out there and that I found. And I love this quote because he mentioned most people spend more time spending or planning on their vacation than they spend planning their life. And it's just so true. So I really want to encourage you a couple times a year to set aside time and really give yourself that opportunity to reflect on your goals, to reflect on your successes and how you might pivot or adjust some of your financial goals to improve your outcomes going forward. Take that time. You owe it to yourself. And I truly believe financial wellness is a self-care opportunity for myself. And so with that, I'm a big affirmation individual. I believe in whether affirmation is quotes or affirmation is documenting some repeatable, mantras you want to give yourself. Or I use an affirmation. This song is my favorite song. When I'm struggling financially and I'm forgetting, where my goals are, and I'm like, oh, I can never get there. I listen to this song called Overcomer, and I actually watch the video usually to just remind myself that you can overcome. We often hit roadblocks or we get depressed or we get sad or we're so angry at ourselves for making a mistake or, we overindulge too much over here, whether it's eating or financially. It's okay. Give yourself grace. Let that go. I also sometimes will do this, let it go, get it off my shoulders, forgive yourself. But I'll listen to the song to just remind myself and get remotivated. And so really want to encourage you, affirmations remind us that it's okay to let go of the past and continue to change going forward. And those affirmations for me, they just help me to really push myself to just move forward again with positivity and progress. And I don't believe they're fluff. I think they're so important because they really can help change your behaviors going forward. If you have an affirmation that you love, please put it in the chat because I just think they're so important. And so with that, I just want to encourage you and think about maybe put in the chat, oh, teamwork makes the dream work. That is a great one, Cindy. That's so awesome. What is one thing I want to challenge you to put in the chat, everyone? What's one small action that you're going to take this week to develop a millionaire mindset? Are you going to tackle or think about one of the wealth pillars? Are you going to think about how you might be able to define an action plan to kind of build some of those millionaire mindsets? What's one thing I want to challenge you to think about? Just write it in your notes. What's one action you can take away from this workshop towards that opportunity? And then with that, I'm going to put in the, Cindy said she's going to stay in budget when I move to Florida to buy a new dream house. Oh, kudos to you. Keep that in mind. I love that. So I'm going to put in the chat right now, hit send. The first link that you have is for the workbook. The workbook I created specifically for this workshop. It is a printable workbook. You can go in, download it, use it to set your priorities for the year. It's also got, like I mentioned, I'm a big vision board person. So it's got a wealth building priority vision board where you can kind of document what's the pillar that you're working on, what are some action steps that you want to prioritize, and what does wealth mean to you? I've also put in there that 30-day action plan. I think it's so important that when you're motivated, you immediately jump into what you're going to do for the next 30 days. I also put a letter that you could write yourself to your future wealthy self to really reflect on what's that opportunity, why is being wealthy and investing important to you. And so I hope you find this workbook helpful for you. grab that link as well. In that, that's a printable. I also want to remind you, I am a financial coach. And so if you're feeling really overwhelmed about how do you set financial goals, or I'm just really not sure how to really embrace these habits, Kathy, I want some help. I work with my clients to really help them embrace these different behaviors. And we talk about some of the things that might be good behaviors versus the poor behaviors that they might want to course correct. I also help them to find accountability. Oftentimes when we're trying to embrace something new, we need an accountability partner to just make sure that we're doing what we said we were going to do. We create financial goals together. We also think about some timelines and some action steps on their pace. Oftentimes, people need the help to kind of get that. Finances can be muddy, they can be overwhelming, and we can just find that clarity and that kind of get rid of some of the overwhelm by talking a little bit about addressing what are some of the things that they're not feeling confident about. And so we talk through that with goals and those financial values that I talked a little bit earlier about. And so again, I truly believe coaching in an investment in yourself, it's not just an expense and a bottom line to your checking account. It's really an opportunity to grow in your financial prosperity. And so just want to mention, that is an opportunity if you're looking for someone to help build some insights into your future. And with that, for all of my new clients, if you're interested in onboarding with me, I offer an exclusive workshop pricing for my 90-day prosperity package, which is 3 60-minute coaching sessions. It's available for the next 2 days. You can use the link in the chat to schedule a free consultation. It's a 30-minute consultation because I've already kind of given you a little bit of my history. We talk for 30 minutes about where do you want to go? Where are you struggling? What's keeping you up at night? What are those opportunities where we might be able to, again, get you really laser focused on improving your financial prosperity. And so that pricing is available for the next 2 days. And then with that, I want to let you know I'm going to be launching another workshop. Registration will open for my next workshop, which is going to be July 15th. I always host my workshops on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. The next one's going to be about realigning your mindset again, and you're doing a money reset. If you're really wondering about how you can reset your budget, reset your spending plan, really encourage you to look for that. I will send you an email if you're interested in signing up. I just love these workshops, just a way for us to have dialogue and just really come together, share information with one another, and then get inspired and motivated to make changes. And so with that, I just want to thank you all for joining me today. I appreciate all your dialogue in the chat. And if you're looking for more real tools and real tips, I am out there on social media. Connect with me on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all those fun social media accounts. Just come and find me. And if you have any questions, I will stick around, but I will also send you an email in the morning with the workshop and a link to the replay if you did want to take a look at any of the presentations. Thank you, Hillary, for joining us. I appreciate it. Do you have any questions?
Wait, why do Teresa and I don't get a mention?
Thank you, Cindy and Teresa, for joining me as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ladies. You enjoy your Memorial
Bye.
weekend, and I'll send you more links tomorrow. And let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.